An easy way to put the shift that right now is transpiring in the collective and in our individual fields of consciousness is that we're undergoing a great convergence of timelines. And of course, within every timeline is an individual self that is being experienced. Before we go down into the specifics, let's first unpack what a timeline really is, because it's very important to understand a timeline not just as a hypothetical, holographic concept, but as a real energetic strand of possibility that is playing out simultaneously, meanwhile you're having this very real physical experience. Most people downplay the importance of fragmented timelines, meaning if you are not sure why you're feeling all these different emotions and having all of a sudden resurrected parts of you, past events, traumatic programs come back into your field, it's because this is actually you playing out experiences of parallel timelines in an attempt for these timelines to recohere so that you can indeed integrate the wisdom that's required for you to enter this next stage of your development. Timelines are literal energetic pathways through which decisions, choices, personality traits, whole expressions of yourself, and possibilities in reality play out due to the configuration of your consciousness in that particular timeline. Obviously, there can be so many different timelines because people often deal with a crossroads when faced with an important choice to make, or when feeling that there's a possibility to invoke a destined pathway or to act upon past karmic circumstances that may feel like drawing you into a fateful past situation all over again. This is the choice that we all have, but often it's a subtle one. And so timelines can form even without our conscious intention to create them. When there is a missed opportunity, or when we actually don't make a certain decision or take action on something that can be the constituent of a whole new energetic pathway that marks the soul's development. Many of us are experiencing multiple versions of ourselves across many different timelines because fragmentation is the ego's most convenient strategy to staying in control. And so if you feel like you are accustomed to controlling yourself, to filtering things out of your chosen identity through which you engage with the world, and feeling a lot of confusion about who you are and what you actually contain in the depths of your inner world, then what you're likely dealing with is actually a fragmented state of the timelines that create your soul's architecture. Well, the good news is that it's becoming increasingly simple to recollect those past fragments of the self, in essence undergoing a soul retrieval process where you begin to remember past traumas, frozen parts of the self, by seeing these aspects in dreams, through synchronicities, through symbolic representations that are actually floating up into this present timeline at this time in order to bring you awareness of everything that has yet to be reclaimed. If you actually take it upon yourself at this time to pay extra attention to everything that is coming up to the surface to be witnessed, then what you're going to be feeling is like different parts of you that you didn't even know fully existed want to be illuminated, want to speak through your field and suggest underlying messages and the causality behind what you're currently going through. The key is that as Earth's frequency is ascending, the only way for coherence to shape up is for these different timelines to come into a state of resonance. Because when we approach the higher dimensional planes, the fifth dimension and beyond, we enter a space in which there is no more separation. No longer is there a tug of war between parts, polarities like the masculine and feminine, like the ego and the soul, or the inner child and that protector that many of us have developed to keep ourselves safe and distanced from our inner truth. Because relative to this higher dimensional experience, we can feel ourselves as complete beings, playing out all the decisions that effortlessly come to fruition through the culmination of choice. What's important to also pinpoint is if you have not been experiencing a frequency of love in your life, if you have not been feeling comfortable being your true self, then this may feel like too rapid of a wake-up call, as everything in the past that has been preventing your authentic reclamation of self and your self-loving ability to show up fully is now coming back into your consciousness. And it's going to be triggering past fears of abandonment, fears of not being accepted, a lack of justice that you might have incurred, or anything else that feels like an oppositional factor that your ego uses as an excuse to not fully show up. Meanwhile, all of that is actually happening for you to understand why your fixed self has been construed in the way that it has been, allowing you to see that, honor it, and hug all these parts of you back into a state of wholeness. In other words, the past, present, and future versions of you are now simultaneously coalescing into a state of embodiment. And the goal is to allow all these aspects of you to work together because ideally that is exactly the role that they serve. Think of it, you across all these different timelines are helping your own soul express possibilities in order to come into the deepest state of embodiment, presence, and universal love. As soon as you stop resisting and become that central axis upon which various parts of you can coalesce into harmony, this harmonic self begins to form. The most important work is to become comfortable holding space for contradiction, for paradox, for things like the traumatic past that you might still viscerally be holding on to, and the future state in which that pain is seen merely as a stepping stone to get to a place of liberation, where you can hold hands with both something like shame in the past and empowerment in the future, or between the victimized inner child that may still be lurking within you and the most powerful savior that also exists within you when you choose to mother yourself back into a state of unconditional love and resonance. Think of it this way, we are each like a Russian nesting doll, holding fractals of different programs and protocols and selves that can actually all correspond to fulfill the higher level goal of achieving connection, unity consciousness, and deep completion. However, if we choose to still keep these parts separate because we believe that there has to be a war between aspects of ourselves or between the past, present, and future, then we are the ones that create our own friction. We make it more difficult to integrate and to achieve peace in a time of such rapid acceleration because we believe that peace is still something that must come in the future, when it is actually contingent on our compliance with a new kind of harmonic order that has already entered the collective field. The ego's final strategy is that it attempts to loop us into a familiar way of wiring ourselves in order to expect that which has already happened. So for instance, many people right now are, for some odd reason, experiencing past life trauma resurface into their field, feeling triggered by certain people, places, things, or situational conflicts that may not even be relevant at this time. However, they're feeling this so strongly because that part of them is still tied to a very real timeline in which that trauma is real, and it's something that's plaguing the entire collective experience. For instance, epics of suppression of feminine energy, feeling the fear of unlocking and honoring your spiritual gifts, fearing oppression when it comes down to speaking your truth and being completely translucent at the level of the soul. Aspects like this might be plaguing you because you think that if you were to adopt that integrated self, you would lose the powerful survival strategies that have been created because of these timelines upon timelines, creating contradictions that somehow keep the familiar identity intact. But what if right now we're called to actually go back to the beginning, to allow ourselves to understand why these paradoxes have been cultivated out of a desire to create safety and comfort and security. However, these are no longer the rules that can exist within the new paradigm. And to become really comfortable with ourselves, we need to become safe within the self and within the energy field at large. Unless you can understand why you fear what you fear, why you're angered by what invokes anger, why you are resisting still something that has brought you resistance in your past, you will not be able to clear these frozen aspects of yourself Because a frozen part of you is a timeline that hasn't been resolved, a part of your own energy field that is leaking into realities that no longer need to exist or even can exist. Because as the Earth's frequency is ascending, the entire collective experience is feeling purged of all of these karmic remnants and programs that no longer can be part of this new paradigm. This is why right now a lot of people are temporarily in a state of struggle, defiance, trying to understand why is this experience feeling like such a punishment to them, until they wake up to the reality that this was never meant to be a punishment. This is like a helpful antidote to karmic suffering, trauma, and any other pain that is built up on these survival instincts. And when all of a sudden that is stopped, your system may fight it. Just like somebody that is experiencing Stockholm Syndrome in a relationship might become so bonded to their abuser that they actually feel more pain when they come away from that abuse. If you think of it, dealing with a frozen part of yourself still attached to prior timelines in which you wear the label of being a victim or an oppressed one, or one who is suffering within the context of the matrix, you may feel now that it's difficult to let go of these labels. You may fear becoming somebody that is free of any labels or physical identifiers whatsoever, because it might seem like there is nothing to cling on to in this new experience. But that too is an illusion. When we're not clinging or attaching or fearing or maintaining these illusions of separation, we can actually get to embody and experience so much more of the true reality through ourselves. Because when we're not splitting from our souls, we can allow our soul to be communicating through us at all times, the truth that we're ready to experience. And elevation, or this process of falling up, becomes a beautiful, blissful ride into ever-expansive states of consciousness. When we stop fighting the past or contending with these different parts of us, we can develop a new self, which is ever more harmonic by the day and situation. We can allow ourselves to be permeable to reality and to let ourselves move with these emotions that unlock new avenues in our heart and allow us to feel and receive and be so much more, because we're no longer trying to defend an unstable identity that was only a shell of our true potential. The kind of purpose that's being unlocked in many people these days is one of contacting a new felt experience, no longer looking for certain things or acquisitions, because the struggle to maintain those things is becoming elusive, even to those that have been protecting themselves beneath a wall of egoic achievements. The feelings that are most sought after by those that are experiencing this new wave of awareness is a feeling of love, relaxation, and moving into a space of true knowing and wisdom being applied in everyday life. Because what feels best for the soul is this consistency and this congruency between timelines, parts of self, and even between you and reality. The feeling of not being separate from this entire collective experience all of a sudden brings such fulfillment, because you don't have to run anywhere or look for anything anymore. You simply need to allow yourself to move as deeply into your own 0 point as you can, to become the receiver of all of the harmonic information that wants to come through, as it will, as soon as you choose to listen and actually respond with the depth of knowing that is also already present for you. If we are ready to access this frequency of home and true unity consciousness, then we need to open ourselves up to a new way, a new version of ourselves, and a whole new reality, and actually choose to operate in this kind of bandwidth of consciousness, because it requires our full focus and desire to give ourselves to co-creating this experience. We will be receiving these energies, yes. We are feeling timelines converging. That is all true. But what happens when you receive this information and are inundated by all the new frequencies is entirely up to you. And all of us have to now decide to not only hold space for this experience, but to use it as a gift that then invokes the next wave of creative possibility and service to self and others at the same time. This is the not karmic, but soul level responsibility that we're all being offered. And if we allow ourselves to hold hands with this higher self invitation, we'll be feeling brought into such rapid, beautiful acceleration because we're allowing ourselves to depart from that struggle, that linear processing of everything that no longer needs to be held and can safely be released once we align with this energy of true source connection and love.